Hey, Made in America listeners. Whether this is your first show or you've been with us for 5 years, thank you so much for joining us. Please spread the word about what we're doing and the great things that are happening in manufacturing with somebody you know. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Made in America podcast. Today, I'm with Randy Hauser, president of Chicago Metal Fabricators. Randy, thanks so much for coming on today.
Oh, well, thanks for the invite. Love to talk about manufacturing and made in the USA. So it'd be great.
Well, that's great. That's great that you love to talk about it because that's what we're all about here on the Made in America podcast. But it is the Made in America podcast, Randy. And we always start off with the same two questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Well, we are a custom fabricator of steel and other metal products. So we make a wide variety of different products and they change quite often being a custom fabricator. So we don't have a particular product line, but we do make a lot of different products for people in different industries, from the locomotive, airline ground support to aerospace, water treatment. So we're kind of all over the map on what we do, and that's one of the nice things about being a custom fabricator is we see a lot of different things to build and touch a lot of different industries, which is nice.
And why do you do it?
Well, we do it, obviously the roots of Chicago Metal go back to 1908, and we're still in, our one facility in Chicago is still in the original building that was initially started in 1898, and we're in the same place for 116 years. So they've been bending and forming and welding metal this whole time, and we do it because it's fun to build stuff, and I think that's one of the reasons that our people here are still very much engaged. I've had a lot of people that have been with me, my 30 years here. And one of the reasons that, they like it is that it stays interesting because we have so many different things or challenges in front of us to try to build stuff.
Well, there's no doubt about it that you guys have do a lot. It's not sort of stayed and boring. Lots of different stuff has happened. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, both in terms of your journey at Chicago Metal and a bit of a turnaround that you've been able to implement. We'll have some opportunities to talk about, the part of the difference is not just building stuff differently, but also the fact that you don't have a huge amount of repeat business. So you're going out finding new customers and new projects all the time, and sort of the cultural shifts you've been able to build. So I think we'll put a lot of meat on the bone and talk through a lot of that. But let's kind of go to the story. You say you've been there, Chicago Metal, for over 30 years. Let's kind of get into that history a little bit. Maybe just start off a little bit with what you were doing before you got to Chicago Metal and what brought you there.
Yeah. Before that, I was working in the St. Louis area for a mechanical contractor that also had a fabrication arm for that. And it was kind of a startup. There's a gentleman that I knew that he was kind of a Boilermaker by trade, and but he was very well respected, and he wanted to start his own mechanical contracting company. And so I helped him do that, and we did a lot of work in refineries, chemical facilities, power plants, that type of stuff, and kind of grew that business. But I had met my wife when I was at University of Chicago, and decided to finally make the change and move with her to Chicago and started looking for a job in Chicago area. And back in the day, back before the internet and all that, I actually replied to an ad in the Wall Street Journal looking for a president of a fabrication company here in Chicago. And so, I sent a letter in, and I didn't hear anything for, probably about, I think, 5 months. And then finally, the owner reached out to me and kind of interviewed and goes, I have this Chicago Metal Fabricators. And he also, at that time, had another company in here which made freight elevator doors, which needed to turn around. And then from there to move to Chicago Metal Fabricators. So that's how I originally got hooked up here at Chicago Metal Fabricators.
Was the original ad for a turnaround or just looking for a president?
It was looking for a president, and then as soon as I walk into the place, I realized it was a turnaround. So,
well, no, it was no hiding that. So how did that conversation go? Like, that was sort of saying, hey, we need some help. We're on the wrong track. We gotta get on the right track. How did that conversation come about?
It came about that the freight elevator door company had a lot of field issues and design issues and other things like that. And the guy he had running it really was just a fabrication guy, but they're more integrated in having to do the engineering work, the design work, and so he's looking for someone to come in and get their arms around that, and then also take care of obviously the fabrication that went along with that. Um, so when I got here, we had some disasters out in the field, and it was and it's poorly run. Unfortunately, he had bought it out of bankruptcy, and he made the mistake of having some of the people that were running it when it went into bankruptcy to continue to run it. So it's kind of self-fulfilling prophecy there, in that yeah, they did the same thing again, but so we started working on trying to turn it around, and then about I think pretty short, about six months after I started, we started making some headways, and then a competitor came in and said they wanted to buy us. And so I sat down with the owner and I go, well, here's our options now. I think the best thing money-wise for you is to sell it, because it's going to cost quite a bit of money to get this thing back on its feet. And so we ended up selling the freight elevator company. And then I just hopped over and focused on Chicago Metal Fabricators at that time.
So when you think about that moment, you think you're coming in for a president job, probably thinking of a going concern. Who knows? Maybe the former president was old and retired or what have you. You come in and find out, well, actually, what we're looking for is a turnaround specialist. Do you remember what you were thinking at that time? Did that excite you? Were you conflicted about even taking the role?
Well, I knew it changed a little bit when I saw how bad it was. But the nice thing was that, I think we talked that, my undergrad's in engineering and business. So getting involved with that involved all aspects, from, financial to process, manufacturing, other things. So the whole gamut you got your hands involved with. So I go, well, this is going to be a nice challenge. And, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. At that time, I was, younger in my career. So, I thought I could go elsewhere. So if it didn't work, but it turned out that that worked well. And then, Chicago Metal Fabricators at the time, that needed a lot of work also. And unfortunately, the freight elevator door company was about a third of their business backlog. So, so by selling it, we also lost a third of the business of Chicago Metal Fabricators at the time. So kind of fixed one problem and created another, and then same story, get into a turnaround situation with Chicago Metal Fabricators.
So when you sit down and you got into Chicago Metal Fabricators and we're looking at the turnaround, I think a lot can be learned from a really good turnaround story, not just for turnarounds, but how to
Yeah.
think about running and growing a great business. So maybe walk us through when you first sit down at Chicago Metal and you got to turn it around. You and I probably both know there's never just one problem, right? So you're faced with all kinds of problems. You probably got, sales problems, marketing problems, management problems, process improvements, delivery, shipping, there's a million things you could dig into. How do you think about sorting and focusing on the problem so you can make real headway?
Yeah, I think you really do have to focus. You can't like grab everything at the same time. You can, make, little changes here or there, but uh, we did have some people that could make stuff, so that was helpful. So the first thing I really focused on was, obviously sales and marketing. We just obviously losing the third of our customer base by selling the freight elevator door company. Sales were key. So I spent my first really 6 to 8 months focusing on getting more sales, and with most smaller companies, particularly if you're a president, you spend a lot of your time on that, regardless whether you're smooth running or not. So I went out, started calling on customers, new, old, and find out, what issues they had or didn't have. And then, also the best place to grow your business is with your current customer base. So I tried to spend a lot of time getting to know the current customers, what they wanted, what their needs are, what their frustrations might have been with Chicago Metal, and also try to get a lay of the kind of the competitive landscape we're dealing with here at Chicago Metal. So
So
that was
your guy who's got an MBA, business background, manufacturing background, but your number one priority is sales and marketing.
yeah.
So how did you sort of get the, I don't know, chutzpah to get out there and start driving that sales and marketing, which wasn't really your background?
Yeah. Well, I did a little bit in my first job out of school. I worked as a market development engineer. So I worked on alloy development. So I did get in front of quite a few customers trying to talk with them. But, anytime you're involved with a small company, sales are key. So I just knew we need uh, customers. We need new customers. And you have to get out there. Otherwise, are going to fail. And the other thing with us is that, being a custom fabricator, we have to turn new customers because a lot of times we're only as good as our last job. So we may see that job again, we may not, or you might work on a, one-time project, those type of things. So um, the biggest thing that's kind of key for a lot of, smaller companies going out and sales is that a lot of times a person like me that came from, I used to work for a larger company to begin with, and go out and sell. And then when you go to a smaller company, when you work for a larger company, you're going out and you're selling the company, and the company's kind of a known entity. And when you work for a smaller company, you have to really go out and sell yourself first, and then you try to sell your company. Because a smaller company, you don't have the inertia, you don't have the background that people are familiar with. So you really have to sell yourself first, and then you have to come back and then sell, oh, our company can also do this. So that's a big transition to make, particularly people who work for large corporations, that have a lot of the structure, the grid work, the support, and everything. Small company, it's kind of you got to sell yourself, and then your company
How
can.
did If you think back to, I know it's been a few years, but if you think back to it, I mean, that's just a really, really great point, right? People buy from people,
Yeah.
especially people they like, not from companies. How did you go about sort of convincing people to trust you and buy into you and your vision?
Well, I think you have to. The biggest thing that I've always, and it goes throughout kind of the growth of the company, was like professionalism. So when you approach people, you have to just be professional in every way, and kind of get a trust factor with the buyers or the people you're interacting with, that you're an upfront guy, and that you're not a BSer, and that you know I realize that Chicago Metal we're not the best in some areas or worse, and be truthful and tell them these are the type of things we're going to improve on, and that I will make sure that when we make a product for you, it's going to be what you want, and high quality product. So it's really kind of developing a trust, and talking in a format that they understand. You know what you're talking about, and you can make a difference and get it done.
You think it was helpful for you to be able to leverage your technical background a little bit in those early years, sort of gain that trust?
It was very helpful for me, because a lot of obviously we do a lot of welding and those type of things, and when we ran the mechanical contractor, that was our kind of our forte, is doing difficult welding. So I was able to talk about going in sales call, but I could also talk to other people about welding, what type of processes we use and techniques. And so it gives you some credibility and helps with your credibility when you can talk all the way through the whole organization, the processes that they do, and what we do on a daily basis. So.
When you're kind of starting from this perspective of saying, hey, we gotta fill the backlog, we gotta grow our customers, get new customers, do you feel like you were starting from a place where the quality of the delivery was already strong, or did you have a lot of work to do to kind of improve that as well?
No, a lot of work to do on that. The customers we did have, I think, were trusted what we could do. Fortunately, with our business, estimation is key and critical because we quote everything from the ground up, so to speak. So one of the strengths that Chicago Metal did have is, we had at the time a couple estimators, actually one guy who's still with me, that were very good at estimating, and that's key for us. So we could look at, projects and we could offer them, very solid, quotations that a lot of times other people couldn't quote possibly. So that was one strength we had, and that helped us tremendously when you go out and look at a new project because, it is an estimation. So if you go and you get the job and do it and the estimate's bad, you're going to lose money again. So your estimation has to be key, and we did have some strength there, which helped tremendously.
Got to play off those. Got to play off those. Got to play off those strengths, right?
Yeah, for sure. What strengths you got, you definitely got to play those off and take advantage of them. Yeah.
So you start kind of working on that. How long from you getting started focused on Chicago Metal did it sort of take for you to sort of feel like you were coming out of it? You kind of go from we got problems to hopefully see light at the end of the tunnel to get to the light. Like kind of how long did that process take?
It was probably about 3 years, I'd say. Um, just because, when you work for a small company, yeah, and obviously we weren't turning over a lot of cash. So, yeah, a lot of times in turnaround situations, and I experienced this also. It's like, it's not a good example these days, but I have a gun, but I don't have all the bullets, so so to speak. So I know what I need to shoot at, but I don't have enough ammo to shoot it all. So you kind of have to take it, as we mentioned, kind of one segment at a time and get a little better and a little better. And when you don't have a lot of resources behind you, and you're doing most of it yourself, with utilizing the strengths of people that you do have, it takes some time. So it's probably about 3 or 4 years before we started making some tractions where we had some inertia behind us and felt good.
Do you remember what some of those like either green shoots or what were some of the metrics or signals where you started to feel like, wow, we've really turned the corner?
Well, I think it was, we had a couple new customers that came in, and we had done some projects for them, and they're very happy. And then we started to grow with them. So we also did, we reached out of our comfort zone, which was key to broaden our product. Things that Chicago Mall never would have quoted 3 years ago. Before that, we worked with, and we made some products that they never made here, but they really helped us earn respect of those customers, and also it kind of broadened our bandwidth on what we could do. So that helped us gain more customers, and also attracted some other customers, and that we could do more than just cut and form and weld a plate.
So that kind of, I think, dovetails to kind of a question that I really have, which is, in the metal forming space, right, where you're essentially taking someone, you're going to someone who has a design or a need, and you're taking metal and you're sort of, forming it to what they need. How do you think about differentiating yourself and really finding a way to stand out in the marketplace?
Yeah, and that's one of the keys. Differentiation is key for us, and one of the ways that we differentiate ourselves are kind of two ways now with our people. As I mentioned, our estimators. It's so key, Ari, that the guy who is our operations manager, um, for about 10 years while I worked here, I moved him to be an estimator, that's how key it is for us, because they're really the guys that can talk to the customers. The customers understand we know what we're doing. Plus, those are the guys that make or break you with when you're doing custom work. So, that was key. And then, the other things that we differentiate ourselves with, are kind of size. We had a couple of big pieces of equipment, which helped differentiate us from the probably 5,000 other metal fabricators here in the U.S. So moving forward, I realized that to create some barriers to entry um, for our competitors was to continue to go on the larger size. So we are able to buy some larger cutting equipment, larger forming equipment, which are some big capital investments, and that helps differentiate us, and that we can do some larger work that probably 70%, maybe 80% of the other fabricators in the U.S. Won't be able to do because they don't have that type of equipment.
Was that something that you sort of had when you started and you were able to like build and leverage that? Something that you sort of strategically moved into later? Like, how did you sort of develop that bit of a moat there?
Well, kind of looking at our customer base, and the one piece of equipment that we always kept busy was it actually still runs today. It's a 1962 press brake that was big, 1,000 ton, 30 feet long, and realized that, well, that piece is a needed piece. So we continued to try to grow with larger press brakes, and then cutting and equipment that could feed those, and that helped differentiate us. And then it also helped us, from the next step into welding and assembly, because we can make a piece in one piece instead of three pieces, and those type of things. And then that helped moving on to assemblies of frames and other things, structures down the road. So I realized that was key for us. And then when we had a chance, or we had the capital, then we would try to make the investment, and that's really helps differentiate us, through the years.
Yeah, sort of keep you found something that's a little bit different, and then just kind of found opportunities to continue to invest and grow in that. Seems like it
Yes.
served you well.
Yeah, it does. And then we've kind of gone full circle in that we've attracted customers that wanted this larger equipment. But then, as more and more OEMs go to just, assembly type work, they want you to do more of the one-stop shop. So then we have invested in an Elk Grove Village facility, which is more light gauge. So now we have the whole spectrum from very light gauge up to like 7-inch thick plates. So now we're very, very integrated across the board, and then that helps a lot of our OEMs in that we can do anything from a cover to like a very heavy duty component for them.
Yeah, giving you the opportunity to kind of one-stop shop it, it's got to be really helpful so they don't have to manage those relationships. You said something earlier that I just wanted to circle back to, which was just sort of the cultural shift in the business, or the importance of the people in the business. And I wonder, your thoughts around what you did sort of proactively to nurture the culture of success that you wanted, and how you thought about doing that.
Yeah, I think the underlining was, just professionalism. So, I tried to, same way I approached our customers, same way we tried to, approach our people. I go, well, here's kind of our core people that have all kind of the same values and the skills, and that are intelligent, and these are the type of people that we want to surround with them, and also, give them the tools to stay professionals, like, integrating to, more software to help them out, and integrated ERP and those type of things that when I first started Chicago Metal, only one guy had a computer, and so he would do Excel spreadsheets on it, and he was just the accounting guy. So that whole transition to you could call it automation, but get a little more digital in our work, but culturally, uh, being professional as a leader, and then wanting everybody else to do that, and then it kind of spreads, and then uh, the people out in the shop have them understanding the importance of we have a sign out in our shop that says the customer is your paycheck, and we put that up so our people in the shop realize that it's all about the customer. You may not know, you might see their name on a drawing, but we have to take care of the customer, everybody, throughout the whole organization. And that kind of feeds itself. And then we have the whole team got together, and we decided, well, we're going to get ISO qualified. And 10 years before that, that was impossible. But we had the people, and that helped our journey for everybody getting a little more organized, a little more professional. And then we got ISO qualified, and early 2000s, and that kind of is the next step in professionalism. And then from there, people, were proud that we were making steps, and they realized, this is, this could be a career for me, not just kind of a job. And when, people realize that you have a, culture where this can be a career, and people I work with, of course, in manufacturing, you're always knocking down the silos that everybody likes to take, but try to get people to work together. And they understood that and realized, hey, we're all on the same team and everybody has their own priorities, but everybody really wears the same hat. A lot of them have to wear a lot of hats, and they kind of embraced that, and that's helped us tremendously.
It's funny, it was an interesting sort of thread you wove there around, you talked about professionalism, and I'm thinking in my mind, I wonder what he means by that. And then you sort of wove it in to talk about sort of focusing on the customer, and then kind of adding, process improvement through more technology, and then through ISO, and sort of, you look back over 30 years of sort of driving this enhanced professionalism and this enhanced culture. And the way you describe it, both now and in our prep call, it felt like it looks, when you step back now, like a tapestry or a painting that you set out to start with. Is it something that you saw the end from the beginning, or was it something you just said, look, I just got to take one step today and we'll just keep taking steps, and then you look back 30 years later and you see how far you've come?
Yeah, it's definitely a one step type of thing. It's, when, as I mentioned, your resources are smaller companies, you don't have a ton. So you have to take one step at a time, and, continue to grow. And I've, one of the neat things now is that I have, people that work for me that, come up with better ideas than I have now on improving our professionalism or improving stuff out in the shop. And, that's when you feel like you got the right culture, when, people come up with better ideas than you have. So
How do you foster? Oh, by the way, 100% agree with that. That's 100. That's when it's really flying around. How do you foster? How do you foster that?
well, I think you do it by being approachable, and I think the other thing is, don't be afraid to change your mind. It's one of the things I learned, is that you might go out and look at something that we're doing and go, well, we're going to do it this way, and then, but a month from now, if it's not right, then offer some help from other people that are involved, and change your mind. Well, it's not right, but so they always understand that I'm very adaptable to their ideas, and I always try to be approachable. My door's never shut. I some old management things that work for me, or management by walking around. So I try to walk out on the floor 4 or 5 times during the day, and talk to our lead people out on the floor, and our operations managers, and be approachable. And that's where you get a lot of the good ideas. It's not where you sit down and have a meeting. Let's have our continuous improvement meeting. A lot of it's just by talking to people on the floor.
Yeah, and then putting those ideas into action. There was something that you talked about earlier that I want to touch on, or I guess I brought it up really, but it's the challenge that you face in your business of not having like significant repeat business, or long-term contracts. I know a lot of folks in the aerospace engine business get those LTAs, or other people in the medical device business are sort of making the same component of a syringe, or this machine or that machine. We've talked to so many folks that kind of become sort of an outside part of the company that they work for, and as long as that product line's going, they sort of have something to build on. In your business, it's a low percentage. Maybe I'd love for you to maybe talk about that. What percentage of the business do you got to go get every year, and how do you think about business planning around that?
Yeah, it's we always try to have some base of repeat, which I think is probably about probably 40%. And that was, as I mentioned earlier, about going outside our comfort zone, and building some products. So some of those actually still exist today that we worked on 25 years ago. And so probably about 40% of our business would be deemed repeat type work. The other 60%, it's kind of it's kind of normal for us. We have to deal with it, but one of the things that we've invested in, very heavily in the last, probably 8 years is, marketing, and so we spend a lot of time and money on our web presence, and then also, just going out and talking industries and doing trade shows and those type of things. So it's it's an interesting sales and marketing because with metal fabrication being so fragmented and so many different products, you get involved with the whole spectrum from people that want a 50-ton weldment to somebody that wants a door seal. So you kind of have to kind of try to focus on that, but the marketing aspect helps. But with us, you can't, and I'll go back to it again, we can't get work if we can't quote it. So our estimating, our key guys that are very talented. Now I'm in the process of trying to backfill them and bring on more estimators so these guys can train them and impart their knowledge and hopefully try to digitize some of the knowledge that these guys have as far as knowing how to build stuff and how to estimate stuff.
Yeah, quote and repeat. When you talk about sort of digital marketing, which I'm sure that's changed a lot in the 30 years you've been at it. How do you think about going out there and leveraging that digital to kind of expand your presence in a way that's meaningful to the business?
Yeah, it has changed tremendously. Back when I started, I mean, our first big reach out marketing wise, with the Thomas Register, the old green books or whatever, and
That's a blast from the past.
yeah, that's definitely showing my age, but so that's kind of where we started. But what we try to do with our website is we try to focus our products and show pictures of work we do that hopefully will focus our potential customers on what we do and what we do well. So the way we differentiate our kind of our services, while they're the same as many of the other fabricators, we try to put that with our equipment and then pictures of the equipment working, so they get an idea that we're more focused in these areas, more OEM work than say point of purchase or something like that. But it's always changing, and particularly in the digital content, it's changing a lot. And unfortunately, with the internet now, it's still very key to be there because people can search and find you and spend the money on that. But it's also very noisy out there also, so you can get lost pretty quick in the noise. So you still have to spend a fair amount of money now on trade shows that we still do, and then also just a sales force. So where I used to do all the outside sales by myself. Now we do have an outside sales force, so that helps also.
Man, companies built and invested over time. When you think about sort of getting out there in digital and differentiating, you mentioned previously this concept about the one-stop shop and having the the big heavy-duty machines as well as the lighter stuff. Is that something that you focus on in leveraging that in your digital presence and then marketing outreach?
Yeah, definitely. We still try to throw that out first. That hey, we have two of the biggest fiber lasers in the country, and we have big press brakes that can form these long, large parts that you might need, and those type of things. And everybody shows pictures of the big stuff you do, even though we do stuff that only weighs half a pound. But you always put big pictures on your website of this huge thing we did or something like that. But that's what we still do, that to try to differentiate us and kind of separate us from the noise of the internet, because there's thousands of metal fabricators in the U.S. and around the world now, and so you still have to differentiate yourself digitally the same way we had to do it 25 years ago. So.
Yeah, piece by piece. Well, you've been at it for so long. You really you put a lot of energy into the turnaround. That must have been a lot of work, but also very rewarding. You've grown the organization. You've talked about all the professionalism, the changes, ISO. You're even talking about kind of what I would say is next level, which is sort of saying, hey, we know our quoting and estimating is great. We've got great quoters and estimators. Now we're thinking about how do we backfill that so that we've got a repeatable process, not just to have them, but to train the next generation. So I can imagine all of this stuff, Randy, has kept you energized and focused. What what do you see about keeping you engaged in the years ahead? What keeps you coming back year over year to continue on this journey that you've been on for 30 years already?
Um, yeah, I think it's still, there's always the challenges. So it's, and being the custom fabricator, one of the things that my wife always jokes with me about is like, I told her, oh, we got this, big order, this $500,000 order. And she goes, oh, that's great. You got to be excited. And I'm always half excited because I realize, well, we got the order, but now we have to figure out how to build it. And that's a little different than if you're a distributor or something like that. It's like, I got the order. I know I'm going to make so much money. We don't know. That's so now you have to, we got this, we sold ourselves, we got this great order. Now we got to figure out how to build it and what it's going to take to build it. And we think we have the right equipment. And now you have to come up with the processes to build it. So yeah, I think that's the variability that it keeps it interesting. And then, also, as mentioned, I've been here a while. So we'll be transitioning here for a year. So we're trying, to use the people we have that are very smart to be mentors to bring up the next people. And I'm sure you hear everybody in manufacturing that's so hard to find people, and that's something that you spend a lot of time on, and finding the right people and keeping the next generation, get them interested in manufacturing where they can think of it as a career, not a job. So that's kind of the big challenge now for me, and also continuing to find some new equipment to differentiate us again. So it never changes. Same thing every year. Got to continue to differentiate, win new customers. So that's always a challenge. It's always a challenge. So it definitely doesn't get boring.
Doesn't get boring. So those challenges keep you excited, whistling to work, as they say, every day.
Well, I'm not whistling to work every day because there's challenges for a reason. There's always problems. There's always issues. So, but overall, fortunately, I've been very fortunately that the people that have been with me a long time, they definitely make my job easier. I mean, I think any successful person will tell you that it's people that work for them that really make you successful. So I just have some
No
great
doubt.
guys that work for me and gals that work for me.
Yeah, they make you successful, and it's working with great people. I think that ultimately is what's really rewarding, right? Working with great people and getting great things out of it.
Yeah, and yeah, we've made some neat things here through the years, and a lot of people point to that, and a lot of things that you wouldn't think that we'd be involved with, we're involved with, which keeps people kind of proud. So, and the guys in the shop are proud of the stuff they make also.
There you go. Made in America. That's what we're all about. It's fantastic. Well, Randy, it's been great talking to you. Love hearing the story. I got a few last questions to wrap it up. You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah.
Well, I always like to ask, do you have a favorite business book?
I do, and it's a very old book, but it was helped me tremendously. It's called Competitive Strategy. It's written by Michael Porter back in the 80s, but it's very good at helping you think about your business and what segment of business you're in, and maturity of your business, and how to go about trying to differentiate yourself, as we said, or be a low cost leader, or can you be or not be. So that helped me a lot, and I guess in the fundamentals when you face a turnaround.
Wow, that's a new one. And Michael Porter, famous guy now for sure. That's great. Competitive strategy. Put that on the list.
Yeah, I think he
What's
wrote it in the early 80s, but don't tell anybody that. So
what's old can be new again.
yeah.
Randy, what's something that you learned early in your career that you think's helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
I think one of the things that I heard this from an old football coach, is actually Gene Stallings, and I heard it one day when he was talking, and this was, I think, back in the mid '90s, when he was actually, I think he was coach of Alabama at the time, but he said something that stuck with me that helped me out tremendously, which is that never confuse activity with accomplishment. And that is that is so true, I'm sure, in so many businesses and aspects of life. But it helped me focus on: are we doing this because there's a purpose? Or are we doing this just because we think we need to do it, or it's making us look busy? So.
Never confuse activity with accomplishment. I absolutely love it. Randy, what's something that you learned later in your life or later in your career that if you could go back and tell young Randy and he'd listen to you, you'd think
Yeah.
it'd make a real positive impact?
Well, I think the thing that the 80-20 rules, huge in business with that type of thing, but I have a 90-10 rule. And something I kind of learned later on that would help me is that 90% of the people can tell you what the problem is. You got to find the 10% of the people that can solve it.
That's a great one, and no doubt about it. A lot of armchair quarterbacks want to tell you how to work it, but very few will actually go out there, get in the field, and make it happen.
Yeah, you got to find those 10% that will know the problem and help you solve the problem. And 90% of all people can tell you what the problems are. I mean, that's kind of the simple side, but the 10%ers that can solve it, those are the people you want next to you.
No doubt about it. Randy, this was super terrific, man. I really, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your history, just being so open with us. It's been really a pleasure chatting with you.
No, I enjoyed it very much, Ari. It's like, hopefully we can get more kids involved in manufacturing. It's necessary for us to be a great country and our national security even. So it has to be done moving forward. So I appreciate the work you're doing.
Amen to that, my man. Thanks so much, Randy.
All right, take care.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by Compass MSP.